welcome to the Manfield Auto Course for the 1988 Castrol 6-hour race for production motorcycles. Still rather wet and windy here at the moment, but we're hoping it might just clear in time for race start. Anyway, let's meet some of the leading competitors here and have a look at some of the machinery they'll be riding. Paul Pavletich and Glenn Williams are both experienced international riders with cool heads. The disadvantage with the Kawasaki ZX-10 is that it needs an extra fuel stop and a brake pad change over the Yamahas. Aaron Slight and Andrew Stroud are the young challengers. Slight looking for a third 6-hour in a row. The FZR will need 4 fuel stops and should get through on its brake pads. Chris Haldane and Australian Wayne Clark are very close to the pace and capable of pouncing on any mistake made by the front two pairings. The bike's another FZR 1000. Jason McEwen and Eddie Kattenberger are a very hard charging pair with easily the quickest time in 600 class. The Suzuki GSX-F will be easier to ride and much less tiring than the big superbikes. Brian Billett and Mike King are in contention overall with a 1:17.9 qualifying time. The bike is the Honda VFR 750, one of only 3 in 750 class. Russell Josiah is paired with the extremely talented young Aucklander Simon Crafer, and they're second quickest in junior class. The bike is the quick and responsive Kawasaki GPX 600. I'll be joined in the commentary box this year by a variety of people with a variety of expertise. Let's meet them.
Essentially, the Castrol 6-hour production race here at Manfield is a marketplace for the distributors to sell their product. In other words, if they feature well in the results at the end of the day, this will reflect very favourably in their sales figures as the summer season continues on.
Motorcycle racing is normally considered an individual sport, but not so the 6-hour. It's very much a team event where what goes on in the pits is every bit as important as the riding out on the track. The time taken to change tyres, brake pads and refuel the motorcycle can easily win or lose the race for the team.
The Castrol 6-hour is an event for production motorcycles. That is, the bikes are as they come off the showroom floor. There are a few changes that are allowed, such as tyres and brake pads, but what we're essentially getting here today is a comprehensive stacking up of one brand against the other to see how they come out at the end of the day.
Looking at the front end of the grid positions here, Glenn Williams and Paul Pavletich have pole on the Kawasaki ZX-10 1000 at 1:13.47. Aaron Slight and Andrew Stroud in second place on the Yamaha FZR 1000 at 1:14.10. Chris Haldane and Wayne Clark in third place on the Yamaha FZR at 1:14.77. In fourth place, Mike Webb and Peter Clifford on the Yamaha FZR at 1:15.58. Tony Rees and Dave Hicks on the Yamaha FZR 1:16.13. Alistair Nisbet and Charles Price on the Suzuki GSX-R 1100 1:17.44. And then the first of the junior competitors, Jason McEwen and Eddie Kattenberg on the Suzuki GSX 600F with an excellent qualifying time of 1:17.57. Behind them, Anthony McCarthy and Sean Aiken on the Suzuki GSX-R 1100 1:17.80. And then the first of the 750s in ninth place, Brian Billett and Mike King on the Honda VFR 750 1:17.9. And not to be outdone by anything the Australian commercials can do, Television New Zealand Sports has Racecam. And if you think you've seen small cameras before, have a look at the size of that. Just behind the Speedo there, the size of your thumb. That is the camera giving you the rider's point of view. And if you have a look a little further down the motorcycle, you'll see underneath where the tail light normally goes is the transmitter, and the little white piece there is the aerial, so that we can get the signal to a receiver and then back to the van and back to you.
Peter, welcome back to New Zealand with just seconds remaining before the start of the Castrol 6-hour. What's going through a rider's mind in particular at this moment?
Well, real tension because it's incredibly tricky conditions here. Build up to the race, the track is wet in patches and the guys are going to have to try and go out there, settle into a pace and pick their line between the wet and the dry stuff. Very, very dangerous, very tricky for overtaking.
Has your race plan been altered in the last half hour or so with the weather the way it is?
Well, we're praying for a dry race now. The weather seems to be changing for the better, so we're going with a dry race plan and hope that it stays that way.
And if we do get rain during the day, how much is this going to alter the tactics?
Well, a tremendous amount because it alters the amount of tyre wear, brake pad wear, fuel consumption, and really in a day like today with it so variable, you just have to make it up as we go along.
Ready for the sprint across to the bikes, the traditional start for the Castrol 6-hour for this 1988 race. Can Aaron Slight make it 3 in a row? Bit of a false start there. Some of them wanting to get away very quickly. Racing across to the bikes now. Let's see who gets the best start. On the front, Glenn Williams, Aaron Slight, Chris Haldane, Mike Webb. Glenn Williams out very quickly indeed. Chris Haldane out quick. And into that first corner, on their way on this big journey. 6 hours and probably somewhere around 275 laps for the Castrol 6 hour for 1988. Don't worry too much about the order early on, and don't worry too much about the lines. They will have to make it up as they go along because there are wet and dry patches here. There is no clear dry line. That will help with things like tyre wear, brake pad wear and fuel consumption. But some of the pre-race plans have already gone out the window. Very quickly away, Chris Haldane. Behind him, Glenn Williams. Go back to number 5 there, Tony Rees riding first. And Aaron Slight getting into his stride as well. Glenn Williams on bike number 3 there will need to pull away at something like a second a lap. The Kawasaki ZX10 is the quickest bike in the field here. He qualified at 1:13.47. He will need to be pulling away in the low 13s if he can. He needs an extra fuel stop and he can't get through the race on a set of brake pads. So he needs to be pulling away with enough advantage to give him that time that he'll need in the pits later in the race. One extra fuel stop. It'll take 20 odd seconds for the actual fuel stop, but by the time they get in from the race and out into the stream again, it's the best part of 40 seconds. So settling down to that pace now, Williams ahead of Slight. Then Haldane. Then Webb. Behind him, Tony Rees. The first of the junior class bikes in the hands of Jason McEwen and Eddie Kattenberg, the Suzuki GSX 600F. Up into 8th place at the moment. 7th quickest qualifier. The first of the 750 bikes, the Honda VFR 750, 9th fastest qualifier, being ridden by Brian Billett and Mike King. One of the early victims of a very slippery track, the Malcolm Pentecost Patrick Banks entry, the Honda CBR 600, looking very, very second-hand at the moment, and their race is certainly run. The rider's okay, a little bit of a limp. Aaron Slight there, just wanting to settle into a rhythm. It's what's important at this stage of the race. Glenn Williams knows that he has to pull away very, very quickly. The view from Aaron Slight's bike in 2nd place. They're riding with Andrew Stroud, the talented young pairing. See, they changed there, 10,500 revs. There's the race leader, Glenn Williams, co-riding with Paul Pavlitic, the very experienced pairing on the Kawasaki ZX10 1000. Looking at the bike cam here on Aaron Slight's bike, he just had a moment and missed one of the corners in the infield air section and went straight ahead. So he's obviously having a little bit of bother with brakes or brain fade and getting back on the pace now. So that will give Glenn Williams an advantage. I wonder if that is their challenge dissipated. The performance of these bikes and the riders was so close that barring incidents, it was a pre-plan. We'll have a look as Aaron Slight, we expect, will pit this time round. See if we can get a word on what the problem is.
You wouldn't expect to see any flatness in the rear tyre because while he's running fast, it's thrown out by centrifugal force. But it gave a little peculiar weave there as he pulled into the pits. We'll soon see what they do.
That's it, into the pits. The bike stopped.
They're certainly getting at the rear wheel and changing it. That's the rear Dunlop coming off. And another one going on.
Now they're not changing rider. It's Slight who's going to stay on. Stroud there talking to him.
Of course, they'll have taken this opportunity to top the bike up with fuel. No, now Stroud looks as though he is taking over. They've topped the bike up, so Stroud will be able to do a full hour.
It's certainly a very slow pit stop by comparison, and not one that we would have expected to take this long. They've been in the pits now for almost a minute. Possibly the reason that they put Andrew Stroud on board the Yamahas, that we're now around about 40 minutes into the race, although Aaron Slight's probably in the groove, but Stroud will go out very much a fresh rider. A new tyre on the back and away, but I'm not sure why that pit stop took so long. They were very delicately putting the thing both in and out, but it's a fresh tank of gas and a new rear tyre, and 20-year-old Andrew Stroud, the Howick rider, brings the Yamaha back out onto the circuit.
Right, and that is a long pit stop considering Dennis Shaw heads their pit crew, and he is a very, very experienced man. That's really going to cost them. Aaron Slight shaking his head, not happy. So Glenn Williams now, having gained considerable advantage from that pit stop, for Aaron Slight, handing over to Andrew Slouch, and Williams now being able to pull away something like 34 seconds ahead, has got past Stroud, and even if they don't have a recurrence of the problem, Glenn Williams is really in the box seat, because the only people able to challenge him were Stroud and Slight.
Yes, it's a bit like a fairy tale come true for Glenn here, Tony. He's pulled out the advantage that he wanted to, and perhaps some of the pressure will be taken off him. He can probably run the race pretty much the way he wants it. He's got a good, firm lead over Chris Haldane and Mike Webb at the moment. He's still pulling out about a second a lap. If the pressure comes off, obviously, he's not going to be suspect of the same sort of brake pad and tyre wear, and perhaps he might even be able to squeeze the whole race out of that one set of front pads.
And coming into the pits again, Andrew Stroud this time, and it appears that they have a repeat of the same problem. It's not getting any better, so they're going to have to investigate where the oil leak is coming from. Getting oil on the tyre, which is making stripes all round the tyre, parallel with the grooves, and making it absolutely unrideable.
Dennis, it's a pretty rare occurrence, but it looks as though you've had to accept that your bike's out of the race.
Yeah, it looks like it, Peter. We've had a little problem. We had it at Pukekohe a couple of weeks ago, and it looks like it's reoccurred today, and we tried to solve it and we haven't been able to, so I can't risk Andrew and Aaron riding around on a bike that may hurt them, so I've just decided to scrap it for the day.
The very sensible and experienced team manager Dennis Shaw explaining the problem, and that not only is bad luck for Stroud and Slight, it's bad luck for us, because that's the bike that we had race cam on, and we will obviously no longer be able to use it. Still leading at the end of 1 hour of the Castrol 6 hour for 1988. Glenn Williams on the ZX10 1000 Kawasaki, the biggest, heaviest bike and also the quickest in the field. Running through the positions after 1 hour, it is Glenn Williams on the Kawasaki in first. Mike Webb in second place at the moment. Chris Haldane is in third place. Looking back to fourth is Tony Rees, Nisbet and Price on the Suzuki, then McCarthy and Aiken in sixth place, and in seventh place, the first of the 600s, the GPX 600 Kawasaki of Josiah and Crafer. That's the order for them. So there's Paul Pav having taken over from Glenn Williams, who did a superb job, had the pressure removed from him, and really handed over to Paul Pav with the bike in really good nick. They thought that they had done an hour 12. By our calculations, they were a minute or two short of that. So it's not absolutely certain that they'll be able to get through with one less fuel stop than they had originally planned. And looking down on the pits, I see that Aaron Slight and Andrew Stroud have had their crew working very, very hard on that bike, the number one bike, and they may just get back out there as Paul Pavlitic wends his way around the track up towards Higgins. And once again, to get the big Kawasaki wound up down the back straight. Along there, he just gets to fourth, down to second for Higgins. Up onto the shoulder, and as he comes out, it's third gear. Up to fourth. He only just manages to snatch fifth gear for a couple of seconds there before he's down to third, round Dunlop. Up to fourth again. Fifth as he comes past the start-finish line. Onto the brakes. Second gear out of Coca-Cola. He's down to second round here. Up to third briefly. Back down to second in this part. And then up to third again. As he gets to the Goodyear hairpin. Down to second there. And as he gets wound up off the exit, he'll get to third, to fourth, and back down to second as he gets to Higgins again. So a hair-raising moment there for Peter Clifford, our co-commentator part-time for the day, and riding with Mike Webb on the number 4 bike. Just getting all awry there, having an anxious moment. He'll have to come into the pits to get approval to restart the bike. Having been down, the marshals will want to look at it and make sure that the bike is roadworthy again. Paul Pavlitic still taking fairly wide lines, occasionally looking a little rough, certainly by comparison with Glenn Williams riding the same bike, and they are still preparing to come in and change a front wheel. And we notice that he still hasn't got rid of Wayne Clark on bike number 2 off his tail. And I'm sure that the two of them are enjoying it out there. Wayne Clark, the Australian, a very experienced rider, but it's really a dice that Pavlitic doesn't need with a couple of laps up.
Well, probably not. I think when you look at the sort of times that they're turning in here, 1:15.8 now as Clark prepares for a dive up the inside. But Pavlitic and Williams qualified at 1:13.47 during yesterday's qualifying session, while Haldane and Clark were at 1:14.7. So they're probably running just a little bit up on their race plan, because we also got to remember that maybe Wayne Clark is riding a little bit harder at the moment than perhaps what necessarily may be the case. Because this Kawasaki, as we spoke to Glenn Williams earlier on today, they're coming in for probably a pad change, and that will be at maybe around about the 3-hour mark. He said that to get the maximum optimum performance from the brake pads, about 3 hours is their whack. From the rest of the time, they're not really that efficient. So we look upon this dice with a lot of interest. There's two very experienced riders up there with two different race plans in mind.
And 2 laps between them, which certainly would allow enough time. We'd expect it to take them about a lap, about 1 1/4 minutes to change a front wheel. Of course, things can go wrong in the pits, but at the moment it's looking very comfortable for Glenn Williams and Paul Pavlitic on the ZX10 Kawasaki, out in front by 2 laps. We've talked at some length about these bikes being production bikes as you buy them off the shop floor. That includes tyres. And Peter Clifford, just point out to us what you can do nowadays with tyres that you can buy off the shop floor.
Well, the thing is that production tyres, the tyres you can buy at the dealer, are used for racing all over the world on production machines, and the top guys are riding these bikes, pushing them much, much harder than you would on the road. So you get a fantastic degree of safety because these things are pushed absolutely to the limit.
And the signal there from Paul Pavlitic as he came past his pit lane with thumbs up and everything okay, and he's just had some pressure again removed from his team, because as he goes down the back straight, you notice there that Wayne Clark has run out of gas, and he's getting a tow now from another Yamaha team, Aaron Slight, who has nothing to lose. Stopping to see what the problem was. We assume he's run out of gas. If so, he's got a long push back to the pits because he's midway down the back straight. He didn't appear to have a moment or an off of any kind. He just came to a halt. I wonder if they were trying to squeeze the last little drop out of that gas tank. There is bike 5 that we began to talk about, which now holds second place with the demise of the Slight and Stroud and Haldane and Clark bikes. Tony Rees and Dave Hicks. Not one of the hotshot teams here. Both very, very competent riders. So into the pits before scheduled, it's Glenn Williams, and they were scrubbing a front tyre. Now the one on it is almost brand new. I think it might be pads they're going to change.
This is no doubt going to reduce the lead that they had earlier on. Williams has only been on the bike for about 25 minutes, and I'm amazed that perhaps they didn't change this when he came in and took over from Paul Pavlovich. But I guess you get two different riders, two different opinions. But you can see the calipers being removed from the rear of the fork leg.
They're obviously going to change the whole brake assembly there. So just in the back of your frame there, bike number 5 with Tony Risa Whakatane on it at the moment, co-riding with Dave Hicks, is the new race leader unofficially. It appears that Glenn Williams has lost so much time in the pits that they have been overtaken for the lead now and reduced to second place. Tony Rees and Dave Hicks have taken over first. On bike number 5, the Yamaha FZR, they were the 5th fastest qualifiers, 3 seconds off the pace, and the misfortune of others seems to have catapulted them as really nobody's picks into the lead of this race. So after 3 hours, let's update you with the placings and the order. Rees and Hicks on the Yamaha FZR lead, from Williams and Pavlitic on the ZX10, McCarthy and Aiken on the GSXR 1100 in 3rd place. 4th is Webb and Clifford on the Yamaha FZR. Billet and King, the first of the 750s on the VFR. And in 6th place, Ramage and McCutcheon on the Suzuki GSX 600, the first in the junior class. So really this is a big move up to the top for Tony Rees and Dave Hicks. Tony Rees on the bike at the moment, and I'm sure that they didn't expect to be where they are. The Castrol 6R, of course, takes its toll, Brian, on everybody, and the faster you go, the more risk you're in, I guess, of damaging parts, and the misfortunes have been many.
Well, they qualified in 5th position with a time of 1 minute 16.13 compared to the pole time of 1:13.4. Their consistent riding has been superb. He's been both riders have been very, very smooth, easy on the machinery. The fuel stops have been extremely quick and efficient, and they've had no major problems. But still in the back of my mind somewhere, I find it very difficult to believe that Glenn Williams, with the pace that he's setting at the moment in the 1 minute 14.5, 14.6 bracket, compared to this gentleman's time of around 1:17.9 and almost an off there.
Just having a look at that again, what an upsetting moment. Rees riding absolutely superbly. Came up underneath the slower rider here. And just a little bit of brain fade. Wow, that was so close. Bill Gibbs and Craig Barron's bike. And he wasn't happy about that, understandably. Very nearly curtains in terms of the lead and perhaps even the race.
Well, the onus is on the overtaking rider, and I think that he was diving in under brakes there, and I would actually put the blame on this man here. A little bit of over-exuberance, he would probably disagree from it, but of course the onus, as we say, is on the overtaking rider, and I think that the rider in front, certainly in my book anyway, had the right line, and he had every right to be where he was on the racetrack. But however, that's something to be discussed in the pits later on. The most important thing is both riders are still upright and well on their way.
Just updating you on the junior class, that is the up to 600 class. Bike number 24, Grant Ramage and Mike McCutcheon on the GSX 600F Suzuki lead. From bike 21, Jason McEwen and Eddie Kattenberg on another GSX-F. And then bike number 22 in 3rd place, holding down 3rd place at the moment, Russell Josiah and Simon Craper on the Kawasaki GPX 600. Looking at bike number 6, the Suzuki GSXR 1100, Anthony McCarthy and Sean Aiken, who again have benefited from other people's demise with a relatively slow qualifying time of 1:17.8, which would have indicated that they weren't going to be on the pace. They've now found themselves in 3rd place. The news we hear from the lap scorers is that bikes 3 and 5, which is Glenn Williams and Tony Rees, are actually on the same lap now, so we might have a battle on our hands in the next hour or so. And down the front straight this time, it appears that he's coming in. Rees is coming in. So I wonder if he might have been running out of brake pads or perhaps just running out of gas. He'll hand over now to Dave Hicks. So back in the lead again is Glenn Williams. And we'll keep a clock on this pit change. See just how much second place goes back. Obviously that tyre was starting to wear, which is part of what was slowing Reese down. This is not all going exactly to plan either. They've already been in there 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Of course, you add on some time for getting out of the stream and into the pits and then back out it again. Over a minute now they've been in here. So that's a minute to Glenn Williams.
And while these people have been in the pits, Glenn has in fact actually gone by and put himself one lap up, which will be putting him on his race pace to try and keep a lap ahead in case they have to do another front wheel change or a rear wheel change.
Now by the time he gets back out on the track, that's a minute and a half from the time he stopped. So that's almost 2 minutes. So Glenn Williams now a lap and a half up in the lead of the race with 3 hours and 23 minutes gone. And looking comfortable in front again, Glenn Williams. Bike number 8 being ridden by Alistair Nisbet and Charles Price, the Suzuki GSXR 1100. A little moment off there in the S's. Up and okay, the bike's fine, but of course it'll have to pit and be checked before he can restart. Glenn Williams into pit road. Has about a 2.5 minute lead in the race now, so we'll put a clock on the pit stop. As he comes in, he'll change over. Paul Pavletic ready to go. Now they're putting some oil in as well. Now this provides a possible hang-up if they put too much oil in. There is a tendency to want to overfill it so that it lasts longer. But that in turn can produce problems with it being pushed out the breather and thereafter onto the back wheel. But we're sure they know what they're doing. Paul Pavletic onto the bike, Williams off it. We'll get a word with Williams in a moment. Just looking at the time there, 45 seconds. Remember, he had 2.5 minutes up. They'll want to do it right, but at the same time they don't want to lose too much time. Now that's 56, 57, 58 seconds. Glenn Williams, fairly good sort of a run there in the second lot. You were plucking 2 seconds a lap off the next place very easily.
Yeah, no, the bike's going real good, Tony. I'm really happy with it. We did have a problem with the brakes, as you saw.
Let's just have a look, if you can, at those brake linings. On the right is what they should look like. On the left is what they did look like. When you're getting down to the metal like that, there can't be a lot left. Doesn't give you a lot of confidence, does it?
Wasn't stopping too good.
So just after 4 hours have gone and the weather threatening to rain here again. The odd little spot of rain appearing on the circuit. As our race leader there, Paul Pavletic, co-riding with Glenn Williams, has got himself just over a lap up at this stage. 187 laps completed at the 4 hour mark. So on good race progress at the moment. And let's just have a look at the placings after 4 hours in the Castrol 6 hour for 1988. The leader, Williams and Pavletic on the Kawasaki ZX10. Just a lap and a bit up on Dave Hicks riding with Tony Reese on the Yamaha FZR. Hicks on the bike at the moment. McCarthy and Aiken still in third place on bike number 6, the GSXR 1100. In fourth place, it's the Webb and Clifford bike with Peter Clifford on it at the moment, the FZR 1000. In fifth place, Ramage and McCutcheon on the GSX 600F, the first of the junior class bikes. Then Josiah and Crafer on the Kawasaki GPX 600 in sixth place. On the ZX10, Kawasaki in the lead now by a substantial margin. Behind him in second place is Dave Hicks on bike number 5, and then the battle is for third and fourth places between Sean Aiken and Mike Webb. That's bike 6 and 4. Webb has just got past about half a lap ago. So Sean Aiken now back to fourth. Mike Webb in third place. This is Webb. Co-riding with Peter Clifford. So Williams and Pavletich leading from Hicks and Rees, from McCarthy and Aiken, who've just moved back now behind Webb and Clifford. Webb and Clifford third, McCarthy and Aiken fourth, Josiah and Crafer are fifth. This is where the battle was between third and fourth places. It seems that Mike Webb has had the better of the battle at the moment. It might be interesting in the next changeover. If Peter Clifford gets back on the bike again, which he won't have to do, in fact. They can get to the end of the race from here on the gas that they have left. So it comes down to Mike Webb and what he can do for the rest of the race. Having got past Sean Aiken, he would appear to be assured here, as long as he keeps it on the island and upright, of third place. And looking at the update of the placings after 5 hours, the way it reads is Williams and Pavletich on the Kawasaki in first place, Rees and Hicks on the Yamaha in second, Webb and Clifford in third place on the Yamaha, in fourth place McCarthy and Aiken, Josiah and Crafer, the first of the 600s, in fifth place, Ramage and McCutcheon, the second of the 600s, in sixth place overall. And we suspect last change coming up for Glenn Williams and Paul Pavletich. Pavletich indicating on the last lap that he will be in on the next one. Glenn Williams ready and waiting to do the final stint. As Peter Clifford joins us again in the commentary box. And I understand you can get to the end now.
Well, the thing is, we're going to be about 10 minutes short, actually, but Mike's going to stay on the bike. He's just going to call in and get a couple of pints of fuel with about 15 minutes to go to keep him going to the end.
Will that be enough?
Yeah, we reckon so. We're only just a little bit outside the schedule, and that should do it. And Mike's lapping very, very consistently, very well, and obviously we want to hang on to that third place.
So what have you calculated that you can do that in terms of time?
Well, we reckon that... oh, here comes Pavletich into the pits now.
Get back to that subject in a moment as Pav comes in to hand over to Glenn Williams for what will be the final stint for them, with 55 minutes remaining in the race. Having a little trouble there with the gloves. Glenn Williams looking very hard at the rear tyre. And they're changing. Yes, they are. They're going to change for the last stint. We've got a watch on this pit stop. 25 seconds already. Williams doing very much the supervising role there.
I'm not quite, but I'll be trying to save them for you.
So a little bit of discussion between the two as Pav hops off. Absolute calm between the two of them. And we'll expect a final flawless ride again from Glenn Williams. He's been in such superb form. They're not quite ready there yet as he started it up.
If I caught it, I think what Glenn said to Pav was how the brakes, and Pav said, not too bad, I've been trying to save them for you.
They're actually, there's not a lot of meat on them new, is there?
No, I mean, as we see them, they're having a bit of a battle to get the rear wheel in there. Yes, no, there doesn't seem to be an awful lot. I wonder if there's no specialist brake pads yet made for the new Kawasaki. That might be it.
Well, I was amazed when we looked at the new pads and the ones that were worn down to the metal, and there's just so little meat on there. It's not much wonder that they get through them. And the lead has just changed. There is our new leader once again, benefiting from the slow pit stop. They've been in the pits now for 2.5. Coming up 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Glenn Williams starting to look a little worried. Tony Rees back on the bike, having taken over from Hicks. So he's on what is assumed to be the final stint. This is going to be a battle for the last 50-odd minutes. Glenn Williams has really got his work cut out. He was taking 2 seconds a lap off them before, but he's running out of time. They've been in there now for 3:10. Well, a classic case, it may well be, of a race being won and lost in the pits. They've been so much quicker than anybody else who's lasted out there. Paul Pavlitic slowed down and cruised just a little when it was wet. Now that wheel pin coming out again.
Yeah, obviously hasn't got, something's wrong, hasn't got the pads in place or the spacers in the right place.
That's 4 minutes now.
And this is this business about being production bikes, of course. All the factory works endurance races all made with special quick change wheels, but these things are not meant to try and change wheels in a couple of minutes. But it's done now.
And Williams goes back out, and looking at the clock, that is 4 minutes 20 already, as he wheel stands all the way up pit lane.
That was a demonstration of frustration, I think, that wheel stand from Glenn, just desperate to get on with the job.
4:30 as he goes back, so taking in the time to slow down and go back out again. That's almost a 5-minute stop. Interested spectator here today, Robert Holden. You've run a number of these events, and it's fairly obvious how important a pit crew becomes when you look at Paul Pav and Glenn Williams' change.
Yeah, it is very important to have a really good, precise pit crew to make sure that your stops are as quick as they possibly can and that things are done 100%. And another thing, it's very important that your crew knows what you're coming in for. It would be very easy to come into the pits and your crew think you wanted a rear wheel when you wanted a front, or vice versa. One of the major things is to just make sure whenever a bike stops, it is always fueled up, so that no matter what happens, it can do at least one session.
So as we've seen in the pits, all sorts of things can go wrong. We would wish no ill at all on Rees and Hicks in their pit stop, but that is going to be absolutely critical in terms of what Glenn Williams can do in the way of picking up. He's a lap and 3/4 down. It is technically possible for him to catch Rees and Hicks if they have a poor pit stop. And certainly you must say that Glenn Williams and Paul Pavlitic's pits have not had a lot of luck on their side today. They spent a total of 14 minutes in the pits. Here he is coming in now. Rees, we assume, will hand over to Hicks. Stopping on the spot. See how they go about it. They're going to do it on the brake caliper end.
And that's Dennis Shaw of Moller Yamahas there with the tool. It's actually Dennis Shaw putting the fluid in. He's practiced this for their team, and of course with their bike out of the running, Dennis has come along to help what is really the Yamaha hope for the win.
Wow, that's super time, 21 seconds, and getting applause from the crowd. So that's going to be 45 odd, and that probably has just put paid to Glenn Williams' chance of winning. By the way, we've just seen that there was a dog on the track a few minutes ago. Hoping that that's got cleared. We had a rabbit on the track yesterday. And Hicks out, we imagine, back on the pace relatively quickly. What a super pit stop though, Peter.
Absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? Really, these guys have done a fantastic job all day. No mistakes out on the circuit, and no mistakes in the pits. Just as we were saying, a real team effort, and it's paying off for them.
So there is Tony Rees in the pits and talking to his crew, and obviously very happy. Understandably, I'm sure at the start of the day, as fifth fastest qualifiers, 3 seconds off the pace, they didn't expect to be in the lead of this race. And there is bike 24, which has just taken over the lead in the 600 class. Grant Ramage riding at the moment. Grant Ramage and Mike McCutcheon, the team, on the Suzuki GSX 600F, which qualified at 1:19.73, way down in 16th place. Nobody saw them as a threat, and there they are, right up at this stage to 5th place overall, and leading the 600 class, having just taken over from Josiah and Craper on bike 22, the Kawasaki.
There goes Williams up the inside again, trying to unlap himself from Hicks, which he succeeded in doing. It'll be interesting to see how Hicks responds. Does he realise that he hasn't lost the lead, that it's only Williams unlapping himself, or will he try? Does he think he's fighting for the lead? With a bit of luck, he's been well informed by his pit crew before he got on the motorcycle, and he knows that he's got a lap in hand.
I think, Peter, there has been enough confusion around about lap counting today that they wouldn't want to be too sure of it.
No, that's true, but Hicks doesn't seem to be able to hang on to Williams, even if he thought he was fighting for the lead. Williams is getting away from him.
Once having got past, Williams really pulling away with some ease. But unless Glenn Williams can really pull something out of the bag, and combined with Hicks having a problem of some kind and falling off the pace more so than he is now, it really is out of reach for Glenn Williams. Looking in bike 6 there, McCarthy and Aiken's GSXR 1100, which qualified at 1:17.8. At the moment holding down third place, and Peter Clifford, the gap between your co-rider and these fellas wasn't too much. It looked like it was closing a while ago, but not anymore, is it?
No, Mike was pegging him back when after we had that brief fuel stop just to top things up for the last half an hour, but they've upped the pace a little bit and they're holding the advantage, so it doesn't look as though we're going to be able to regain that third place.
There's the white flag. So Dave Hicks is on his last lap in the Castrol 6R for 88. Waiting to see just how far behind Glenn Williams is in second place. Over the length of the front straight. And while we watch that, Mike Webb has just taken over third place at the end of the straight. Still on the last lap here for Dave Hicks. And it's going to be Hicks from Williams from Mike Webb, I think. Yes, Webb is past the McCarthy-Aiken number 6 bike. The Suzuki GSXR 1100, which seems to have run out of power at the last crucial moment. But this is last lap for our race leader, Dave Hicks, co-riding with Tony Rees today. Hicks from Upper Hutt, Rees from Whakatane. And what a superb race they've run. What excellent pit work, great support, and an absolutely flawless ride from both of them. There's the checkered flag for Dave Hicks, winner of the Castrol 6R for 1988. And so confirmation of the final results of the Castrol 6R for 88. Rees and Hicks on the Yamaha FZR win it from Williams and Pavlitic on the ZX10 Kawasaki. Webb and Clifford on the Yamaha FZR in third place. Fourth went to McCarthy and Aiken on the Suzuki GSXR 1100. Ramage and McCutcheon, the first of the 600s home, in fifth place overall. Josiah and Crafer on the Kawasaki GPX 600, the second of the 600s home, and sixth place overall.